Clone Captain CC7567, more commonly known as Rex, is one of the most iconic characters to come out of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and he's the favorite character of many fans of the series. Rex is beloved because he is unique. He's an independent, free-thinking character with an outlook on life as a clone and on the war as a whole that isn't really shared by any other clones. But Rex wasn't always this way. Like all good characters, he evolved. In this video, we'll be tracing that evolution as it was presented in Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Create your own unique online presence with Squarespace's all-in-one website building platform. Rex's character was one of the Clone Wars' most dynamic, who arguably underwent the most development of all. This was made possible by the nature of the character. Unlike many prominent figures in the show, Rex had no role in the movies, which gave the writers plenty of freedom. Since Commander Cody, the only other clone character to have had a major role from the very beginning, didn't fall into the same category, most of the character traits that the writers wanted to explore in clones were reflected in some way in Rex, which is part of why he's so unique. It also helps that Rex had a good starting model. As many of you likely didn't know, Rex wasn't part of the original concept of the show, not even when many of the other major characters in the series had been nailed down. Originally, his spot in the main character lineup actually went to Alpha 17, an ARC trooper from the expanded universe. This only changed when George Lucas objected to it on the basis that, together with Anakin, Ahsoka, and R2, the show had too many characters whose names started with an A. And so, Captain Rex came into being. Especially at the start of the show, it's very evident where the writers were drawing from Alpha to craft Rex. In terms of design, their armor is actually very similar. Both of them have similar blue color patterns, both wear pauldrons and karmas, and aside from the specific design of said attachments, the only real difference in appearance, at least conceptually, is that Rex has J-Guys and a rangefinder, while Alpha has neither. But the inspiration is evident in Rex's character too. Like Alpha, Rex is somewhat sarcastic, independent-minded, and he doesn't take crap from anyone, not even Jedi commanders like Ahsoka Tano, or the Padawan pack in Alpha's case. That's not to say that the two characters are identical. Alpha is a lot darker than Rex, with his outlook being much more cynical and his methods being much more brutal. But with that said, there is an argument to be made for Rex's character as depicted in his earliest appearances being a kid-friendly version of Alpha's, and we personally suspect that the scripts for some of the earliest episodes were written with Alpha and that Rex was swapped in later. Rex's character does evolve from there, of course, though ironically, he does actually end up becoming more like Alpha as the show goes on, in that he adopts a darker outlook on the war. But then again, he becomes quite different as well. Alpha's cynicism about the Clone Wars brought him to an Imperial line of thinking, while Rex's cynicism led more to the Rebel side of things, but we'll get back to that later. But moving on from Alpha, let's address how Rex's character was introduced. Before we fully dive into that, however, we should address what his introduction actually was. As some of you may know, The Clone Wars wasn't always supposed to start with the movie. What became the movie was supposed to be 4 episodes, one arc of 3 and a standalone flashback episode. These weren't the first episodes to be written. The New Padawan, which was the title for the episode that would have been the movie's part of the Christosis battle, was actually the 14th in terms of writing order. The first episode of The Clone Wars to be produced was actually Downfall of a Droid. By taking Downfall of a Droid, the movie, and the hidden enemy into account together, we get the clearest picture of what Rex's character was originally supposed to look like. And in all 3 sources, one trait outshines all the others: ingenuity. From the very beginning, Rex thought outside of the box. He commanded a walker attack on battleships from an asteroid field, he outsmarted Asajj Ventress to tip the Jedi off to her presence without her noticing it, he repeatedly exploited the logical shortcomings of battle droids, and he was able to outthink Slick when he turned a traitor. Rex's ingenuity sets him apart from all of the other clones that were shown in Season 1, and it's a constant trait of his character in the show going forward, without much change. But while Rex's ingenuity didn't change in the show, it did actually lay the groundwork for what did change. From the very beginning, Rex's outlook on the war had evolved beyond that of your average normie clone. Most notably, his statement in the movie that experience outranks everything shows that he had already begun to think beyond what he had been indoctrinated to believe. But in comparison with Rex of later seasons, he was still very naive. A lot of the standard outlook is still alive and well in his mind at the start of the show, and while he isn't as dogmatic as the standard, he's definitely no rebel yet. This begins to change very quickly, however. That right there is the key. A lot of Rex's character is ultimately constant throughout the Clone Wars. His ingenuity, his leadership skills, his individualism, and his sense of duty don't change at all when it comes down to it. But what does change is the degree of belief he has in the Grand Army of the Republic and in the purpose of the war. Rex's development hinges on the gradual increase of his questioning of what he was indoctrinated to believe. With the events of the hidden enemy, Rex begins to question it for the first time as the existence of a traitor in clone ranks flies right in the face of what he had believed about the Grand Army. As we discussed in an earlier video, Slick's betrayal makes him think, both because of the betrayal in the first place and because Slick was, to a degree, absolutely right. There are a few other nuggets of development sprinkled throughout Season 1 as well, though none as significant as this one. In Rookies, for example, Rex's views on the duty and individuality of clones begins to shift as well. In Jedi Crash, the commonly held view of Jedi as nigh unkillable battle gods is shattered when he has to protect a badly wounded Anakin from nocturnal predators on Maridon. And in Trespass, he learns that not all orders are worth following. This development is ramped up somewhat in Season 2, even though Rex wasn't featured quite as much in prominent roles and there was less of a general focus on clones. He bears witness to more evidence of Jedi being imperfect in the season's very first episode on Felucia, but almost all of his character's development in that season stems from one episode, The Deserter. In The Deserter, as most of you probably know, Rex encounters a clone deserter and, after fighting alongside him, he eventually decides to let him live his life. This is extremely important. Just like in The Hidden Enemy, Rex is faced with a clone anomaly in The Deserter, as just like with clone traitors, there aren't supposed to be clone deserters like Cutler Queen. But here, the situation was more complicated. With Slick, he simply went from being friend to foe, and while there was moral nuance there, at the end of the day, it wasn't all that complicated. But Cutler Queen was a different story. There, Rex had to decide for himself whether the same was true, whether by nature of being a deserter, Cut had gone from friend to foe automatically. His training said yes, but as Cut did nothing to his face to deserve that assumption, Rex gave him the benefit of the doubt. And when Cut proved himself by defending Rex and his family from commando droids, Rex made the choice for himself, and for the first time, he broke from his training in a major way, independent of outside influence. This was yet again another major step for him. Rex's evolution in Season 3 followed a different path. Over the course of the season, with the loss of esteemed clone brothers like 99 and Echo, Rex gradually became disillusioned with the war itself. This was a different sort of break from training, but still an important one. This is where the breed of dark sarcasm that Rex expresses frequently at the start of the show starts to turn into cynicism, both about the purpose of clones and about the war as a whole. This leads right into Season 4's Umbara arc. Though it's hard to tell from watching the show, this, alongside Rex's newfound willingness to break from training in favor of what he considers to be right, was actually a very important crossroads for his character. There were two directions in which he could have gone from this point forward, two ways in which the writers could have taken him. One path led to what we call a rebel mindset earlier, seeing the darkness of reality and setting out to make it better in whatever small ways he could. The other path led to the opposite, seeing the darkness of reality and deciding that the only remedy was decisive, brutal, and from a single consistent authority. The latter path, what we'll call the Imperial Path, was where Alpha's character had already gone. If Rex had still been Alpha, that's exactly what would have happened. But he wasn't, and this was the writer's chance to prove this. This crossroads in Rex's character was a major sub-theme in the Umbara arc. His conflict with Krell began emphasizing the different ways in which Rex had evolved over the show, both in his view of the purpose of clones and his regard for orders and protocol. Ultimately, this leads to the choice itself. Rex actually dodges the choice for a good third of the arc, refusing to endorse or shut down Fives, Jesse, and Hardcase when they work against Krell's orders, and generally towing the line for most of the arc. But Krell ultimately forces Rex to make the choice, and then the character finally comes into his own. We all know how the Umbara arc ended, and with that ending, Rex chose the rebel path. Instead of going down the path of cutting moral corners in the name of order, Rex went down the path of going against order in favor of what's right. There are minor developments for Rex after this, but everything after this choice is just added detail. Umbara, when it comes down to it, was the end of Rex's character arc. The evolution that began with Slick's betrayal and ended with Krell's, and everything after that simply served to reinforce the development that had already occurred, driving Rex further down the rebel path. His work arming a group of rebels on Onderon, his sympathy toward Ahsoka Tano after she was framed for a terrorist attack, and his experiences during Fives' fall from grace and ultimate death reinforced developments that had already been made. His disregard for protocol, his trusts and instincts over orders, and his cynicism toward the war. Star Wars: The Clone Wars was never truly finished, and while that's soon going to change, it doesn't really matter in regard to Rex's character arc. Though we have yet to see how his character will perform in Season 7, we could have guessed right from the end of the Umbara arc. Inhibitor chips notwithstanding, from that point forward it was perfectly clear at the end of the show. Rex would side with the Jedi against the Empire when Order 66 went down. When caught between his training and those he respected, he would choose the Jedi. More specifically, he would choose Ahsoka Tano. And just quickly guys, a little bit more about Squarespace. If you're looking to create a powerful online presence and you want a sleek, good-looking website, then Squarespace is the platform for you. So if you're looking for a platform that allows you to easily create any website that you desire, then make sure you head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Geetsleys. That's squarespace.com/Geetsleys to save 10% off your first purchase. So that's our analysis of Captain Rex's evolution as a character, but as per usual guys, I want to know what you think. How much of this had you figured out on your own? And if this is new to you, let me know in the comments section below. And just before you go guys, make sure you check out all those links in the description below if you want to join the wider Geetsly's community. We have our Geetsly's Gaming Network if you want to game on Gmod and Roblox. We also have all of our Discord servers if you just want to chat with other Star Wars fans like yourself. And lastly, if you are a history buff, then I do have my second history channel that's growing and growing, and we post quality videos there every single week, so make sure you go check that out as well guys. Anyways, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.